Well, hey there. Welcome back to another episode of Pitching Powerhouse. I'm your host, Jen Burson, and today we are going to answer a question asked in our Profitable PR Pros community by Avery Jones. Man, I can totally relate to this one. She says, does anyone have best practices on how to handle busy clients? And we interpreted that to mean like unresponsive clients, which is kind of a nightmare for me and probably for you because you work so hard to get these feature opportunities for them that we know we have to be super responsive. It's what we teach in the pitch lab. Be immediately responsive. You want to be as supportive and helpful to journalists as possible. And when you have a client that's quote unquote busy, which we know means they're not getting back to you, it's incredibly frustrating. So we have some advice from our community and from a member of my team. And then I'll share some of my best practices for how we handle this. So we have Kim Alexander Living Good in the Profitable PR Pros community said, set up a regularly scheduled meeting so you're in their calendar in advance. And then Fallon Taylor basically said, busy clients are actually my ideal clients. I understand what she's saying here. We love clients that basically leave us alone. And I wouldn't say that it's that because they're busy. We love clients that just kind of let us do our thing. Those are the ones that trust you the most. They're the ones that know they made a great decision in bringing you in. And so they're not going to micromanage you, and they tend to pay higher retainers. So I know that, you assume if a client leaves you alone, it's because they're busy, but we have found that it's because they're confident in their decision to bring you in as the expert. So, but what we're talking about here are these busy clients that are maybe not responsive. And Miranda, who is my integrator in my business, said from her experience, busy clients are the best types of clients to work with because they leave you alone, which is kind of what we said, right? But she said it can be a double-edged sword for sure. If there are things that you need from them and they consistently won't get back to you in a timely manner, I recommend having some type of plan B contingency. And this may be something you put in your contract or discuss with them. So that you can proceed without letting them slow you down. If you can move forward without needing them to jump in, that's going to let you go and get those features and not let them kind of sabotage those opportunities because they're just not responding to you. So this really works well with things that your client needs to approve. So for example, if you've prepared something for their approval, give them a certain number of days or weeks to get to it. And then if they haven't gotten back to you, there's a mutual understanding that you'll proceed without this approval. That by them, it's almost like they're acquiescing, like, fine, I have no feedback, or, just hit the ground running because I have no changes. It would be nice if they could say no changes, but assume if you want to move things forward, that you just gotta go with what you got. But it's a trickier situation if you need a deliverable from them in order to proceed. So in this case, it's really important that you discuss expectations and explain to them that if you don't get what you need in a timely manner, their results won't be as good. So here's actually my advice, because this has come up quite a bit in my 16 years running Generation PR. And we've kind of realized there's multiple phases when this comes up. So at the very beginning, when you start working with any client, but especially those who seem like they're going to be hard to reach, have a meeting where you establish expectations. So hold your clients accountable for their participation in your success by setting those clear expectations right from the beginning. So they need to understand that it's a partnership, that you need them to be responsive in order for you to be as effective as possible. So you can even include a clause in your contract about client conduct expectations. We have had several members of our community say that they've included a client conduct clause in the contract because they have certain expectations of how the client is going to support this partnership. And when they don't do it, it's, if it's in the contract, it's essentially breach of contract. You can't do your job. The other thing is you can see if there's somebody internal at the company who will be your set point of contact right from the start when you start working with a new client. Because if you're expecting to hear from the CEO or the CMO, somebody with a very senior role, you might not be able to get to them, or you might be low on the priority list. And we all know when an editor's on deadline, we want to get to them. Okay, so you can establish a point of contact that's going to be responsive, that's going to help you get what you need from the responsible parties in a kind of really timely manner. And you know how to get a hold of that person, and they understand that you might be working with some urgency. So in the beginning, communicate with clients how important responsiveness is. My God, it's like, how are we going to do our jobs if we can't get what we need from the client? I need to hear from you. Like, hello, I'm over here trying to work on your behalf. So you have to really kind of convey that their role in this is to just get back to you, and anticipate what you might need in advance so you have those things. So you want to anticipate making sure all of the assets you need. So that's images, an about copy for the founder, for the brand. You have all their marketing copy if they have it. You have their logos, lifestyle shots, product shots, photography of like great founder shots so that you can send that off quickly, because sometimes you will get an opportunity to do an interview on behalf of your client. Maybe you have some responses. We're going to get into that, but it's going to allow you to just be immediately responsive so that you can button up these opportunities for your clients. You can always tell your clients when you reach out to them that it's important. You can show them, that they're busy and you respect their time, but you're going to be reaching out when it's essential to be successful at your job. So you're not bugging them with every little minor thing. We come to our clients with solutions, not problems. So when we're reaching out to a client, it's because we are offering them either a solution to something, like here's the situation, we could do this, and this is what that will look like, or we're going to approach it like this, and this is the outcome there, and maybe let them decide. But don't go to them and just say, my hair's on fire, I have a problem, without trying to solve the problem yourself. So you're letting them know, I understand your time's important and I'm coming to you because I do need your support on this one thing. And we also notice that you will start to experience during the courting process. So when you're trying to bring clients into your agency and you're pitching new business to them and they're not responsive. So this to me is a red flag. And we actually have this really awesome comprehensive red flags training inside my program called the Agency Accelerator that's going to help you identify client issues before you start working with them. And I have had members of our program literally tell me that saved them on so many, they knew what to look for, and it saved them hours and hours of wasted time with a client that was never going to get them what they needed, that was never going to be a good client, and a lot of heartache. It's that stress. Like, we want you to build a business you love and bring on clients that are like awesome, the best clients to work with. And if they're going to hold you up, you'll see that in the courting period, and that's a red flag. Pay attention to it. And that's in the Agency Accelerator. So keep that in mind. If they're not responsive during the pitch period where you're trying to sell your services, guess what? They're probably not going to be responsive when you're working with them. If a busy client is not responsive, or if a busy and unresponsive client is what you're working with, you need to reflect on how that's going to impact you. So an example is if you pitch a client for an expert interview and you land that opportunity, but they don't respond or show up, or they come late, they don't show up on time, you personally will not only not get the coverage, but you could potentially damage your reputation and your relationship with that media contact. And that to us is like, just an absolute like nightmare of a situation, because you're working so hard, you get this opportunity, you know how excited, it's like getting a fish on the hook. You're like, yes, I got one. And the client blows it. And now that journalist, they're not going to take your calls. They're not going to take your calls. Who is saying calls? We don't call anymore. They won't respond to your emails. They're going to think, well, they have flaky clients, or maybe they think it's you. They don't know. So how can you combat that in advance? Before pitching time-sensitive opportunities that involve your client, let them know how important it is that they be responsive. And then also, we do this little cheat: give an earlier deadline than the journalist actually requests. So you want to build in this cushion time so that they actually meet the real deadline. Reach out to clients earlier if possible when you need something, so that you can follow up and remind them. Okay? So it's kind of like, like we do this with people that are late all the time. You'll be like, oh, it starts at 11:30, but it's really 11:45, because they're always going to be late. Also, be more proactive in letting clients know what is on the horizon and that you'll need them to participate in order to achieve results. And you can always submit client interview pitches without the client's feedback if they don't get back to you in time. So sometimes we will, at the beginning or right as we start business outreach or outreach on behalf of the founder, we will interview them and we'll take copious notes and get all the information in their words. You can even do a Zoom and record it, transcribe it, ask them a bunch of questions that you think are likely to come up based on the pitch angles you're going to be doing for them to secure press for them. And then if it doesn't have to be like a real-time interview and you get the interview questions from the journalist in advance, you can just answer them for the client. You have their words, and you can either send it to them to run it by them or just edit it and send it off. And you have their blessing, because they know that you're answering them based on how they would want to answer them. Right? And of course, it's a lot easier to answer one or two unknown questions than an entire comprehensive interview. So if you could get the bulk of it done and then go back to them and say, hey, I just have a couple remaining questions, get on the phone. Literally, like, do not wait for them to write you back. Get on the phone, get their words, do a Zoom, record it, transcribe it, or just take copious notes as you are listening to them. Another point is, if your client consistently doesn't or won't respond to interviews or other types of opportunities, then you have to stop pitching them. You cannot keep pitching and letting these opportunities fall through and wasting your time, risking and jeopardizing your relationships, making you look really bad. So you have to let your clients know that since they aren't open to responding, or they're really not available to meet a tight deadline, maybe just kind of position it as the kind of right now, like you're working on this launch or you're doing a rebrand or whatever. You have to let them know that because they're not able to meet tight deadlines, that for now you can't pitch on their behalf for those specific opportunities where you need their input. And you want to make it a really respectful conversation. There's no blame. It's not a blame game. Just acknowledge how busy they are and that you don't want to add more to their plate that isn't a priority for them. And if it is a priority, have them let you know and ask them the best way for you to convey to them that something is really urgent and you do need to get their attention, and how much time is an appropriate window for them to get back to you. So if you know that they can't respond to you within 48 hours and you have a 24-hour deadline, you can't throw their hat in for that. Or you have to let the journalist know, I'm so sorry, my client is running a sales conference right now and they're not available in 24 hours. If you can extend to 48 hours, I can certainly get back to you. Let me know, because we'd love to, get you connected to this person. They'd be great for your article, whatever. But always a respectful conversation. And you can always tell the client that if their schedule lightens up and they do want these opportunities to be a priority, you can just switch up your strategy and add these pitches back in. But oh man, it just sucks when you're pitching and you're spending all this time and you're spinning your wheels because they're the bottleneck. They are the bottleneck. Like, guys, why did you bring me in here? The most important thing really is preserving your reputation and your relationships and connection to these media contacts. I mean, this is what the client is paying you for. And obviously other clients are paying you for those connections and your industry expertise. So if one client sabotages that for you, the other thing too is I always look at working with clients when we're in that sales phase as like a mutual courtship, right? It's like dating, you know, you want to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you as much as you're going to be for them. So I interview clients when we get on sales calls. I will interview them. When you vet your clients, you want to really think about how easy they're going to be to work with. And like I said, you don't have to say yes to every client opportunity. And in fact, you really shouldn't. But that like interview process where they're reaching out to you and asking, what can you do for me? You're vetting them the same as they are you. And you're thinking to yourself, how are you going to be to work with? Will I be able to get results for you? Will you support me in my efforts, or are you going to be a bottleneck? I don't want to work with a client that is going to hold me up, slow me down. I always say, you know, we operate like a speedboat when other big agencies are like steering a cruise ship. We're nimble. And if the client can't get us what we need and allow us to excel in how quickly we get results for them, then we're not doing what we know how to do and what our media contacts come to rely on us for. And that's a no-go for me. That's just a no-go for me.